All right, let's start with this as we discuss the 49ers' problems. Blaming Brock Purdy is low-level analysis. No one is saying that he was perfect in this game against Cincinnati. He obviously threw 2 straight interceptions straddling the third and the fourth quarters. But he also kept the 49ers in the game. I mean, this is one of those games that people should be excited about Brock Purdy leaving it, because I mean the narrative about him, and it was an unfair one because he was the final pick in the draft coming out in 2022, but the prevailing narrative was that he was somehow physically limited. Yesterday, Brock Purdy completely defied that narrative, turned it on its head with his 7 runs for nearly 60 yards, his escape from the pass rush. I mean, he was playing behind a backup left tackle. He looked like prime Russell Wilson on those 2 across the body throws. I mean, he should never be in position to have to make those kind of plays, but he did. The most physically demanding plays yesterday, Brock Purdy made to keep the 49ers in this football game. So, I mean, I think this team should be and is very, very excited that they have a quarterback that can make those kind of off-schedule plays, that can take this offense to the next level. What they don't have, what they didn't show yesterday, is a complementary supporting cast around Brock Purdy. For one, the defense was atrocious. The defense played, I mean, I don't like to toss around the term historically bad, but over the past 2 weeks, they've been worse than they've ever been in the Kyle Shanahan era. They've given up 661 passing yards combined to Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow. So the defense has been terrible. They can't stop the run. They can't get off the field. That's giving the offense limited opportunities. And then Brock Purdy's working without a run game. 49ers, I mean, if you go back and watch the tape, when they need to get a yard, they are struggling to get a yard. That essentially highlights the issues that the 49ers have up front. This goes back to the Minnesota game. I mean, it goes back to the Cleveland game, but against Minnesota, this is when Purdy got the concussion on the sneak attempt. The 49ers had to get a yard, and they had to run 2 sneaks. The 4th down one finally got it, then Purdy threw the interception. Yesterday on the first drive of the game, the 49ers twice failed to pick up 1 yard to move the chains, and they go 3 and out, and they have to punt on 3rd down. See DJ Reader, the big defensive tackle, just blow up 49ers center Jake Brendel. So the interior offensive line is a problem. There's been a regression there. I don't think that Brendel is run blocking nearly as well as last season. I think that Spencer Burford is really struggling. And obviously the 49ers are missing Trent Williams, and by extension, they're missing Deebo Samuel. So the point is that Brock Purdy is having to do what he's doing without a credible run game. They've had only 17 carries in each of the past 2 games, and a lot of that 17 carry total is because the 49ers defense is not getting off the field. So he's doing this without a credible run game, without a credible defense, because they've been playing league-low football right now, and without good pass protection. He was running for his life all game with Jalen Moore blocking there instead of Trent Williams at left tackle. So, I mean, the overarching way to look at this is that Brock Purdy had, 360 passing yards, several big plays, despite the fact that he's playing against the stacked deck. And, he's a 23-year-old quarterback, so we need to, assign levels of expectation and levels of blame here. The reason why, you have a 23-year-old quarterback who you're paying, $900,000 a year, is to stock the rest of the roster, because you got plenty of salary cap space to make sure that all the other positions are carrying weight and allowing the quarterback who's young, who's inevitably going to make a mistake or 2. I mean, even Patrick Mahomes would make a mistake or 2 in these situations, but to allow that to happen, you pick up the slack elsewhere. The 49ers aren't picking up the slack elsewhere. Brock Purdy made 2 mistakes yesterday. The defense, and he's 23 years old, the defense, which is chock full of all pros, made no fewer than 20 errors and got absolutely lit up by Joe Burrow and company. Couldn't stop the run. Meanwhile, Purdy on the offensive end doesn't have a run game to speak of. He is the run game. He was the 49ers' leading rusher. So when people talk about Brock Purdy's mistakes, I hope that they have the same energy in talking about all of the amazing throws that Brock Purdy made. How about the 40-yarder to George Kittle when he's backed up on his own goal line, which is a play that Kyle Shanahan only dialed up because he didn't trust his own defense. Or should he have trusted his own defense? How about the multiple throws outside the numbers, the excellent throws outside the numbers to Brandon Ayuk? How about the one that hit Brandon Ayuk in the helmet that might have turned the course of this game? Perfect throw, high-level throw, looking the safety off. I mean, he was doing a lot of that. He's manipulating defenses, Brock Purdy is, with his eyes at a level that a 23-year-old doesn't normally do. So that throw, that came right off of the Kittle one that I talked about, would have put the 49ers in great position. Unfortunately for them, Brandon Ayuk dropped it. George Kittle dropped another one later in the game. I love the Russell Wilson impersonations, though, as I mentioned earlier. The off-schedule rollouts to the right and the throws back across his body. You don't want your quarterback to have to make those throws, but when he's the only one on the field consistently making really good plays and he's running for his life because the offensive line just is overmatched and the 49ers are losing at the line of scrimmage, those are the types of throws that Brock Purdy has to make. So back to the original point. It is low-level analysis. I mean, to the level of not understanding football, to come out of that football game and say that Brock Purdy's the problem, because he's not. He's just objectively isn't. And I'm calling out everybody who's trying to say this. And then there's a lot of people, like on the national level, watching these games from afar that are delivering really uninformed takes. Oh, Brock Purdy's finally regressing to the mean. It's like, you didn't watch the game, did you? You just saw the final score that was 31-17, and you figured that the 49ers offense was sputtering because of the quarterback. And it's not. The 49ers offense is sputtering because they're not playing the complementary formula that any quarterback in the history of the game would need to succeed. Joe Montana didn't succeed when his offensive line was getting destroyed and his defense was giving up 30-plus a game. Didn't happen all too often for the 49ers of the 80s because they had a lot of good players like the 49ers now, but they weren't underperforming defensively like this team is now. Steve Young, I could look back at the 1995 season when the 49ers didn't have a running game. He had to drop back 65 times against the Packers in the playoffs. That didn't end up well for Steve Young. The 49ers lost 27-17, 17 points. That's what the 49ers have scored here over the past 3 weeks, right? I mean, go to Patrick Mahomes yesterday, 24-9 loss. He put up 9 points. I think that's the amount of points he put up in the Super Bowl a couple years ago against Tampa Bay. But this was against Denver because the situation wasn't well set up for Patrick Mahomes. So it is a team sport, and Brock Purdy is not getting the team help. It doesn't mean that he has zero culpability. Obviously, Brock Purdy wasn't perfect yesterday, but if you put a quarterback into consistently awful situations, especially a young QB, don't expect optimal results. Any QB in awful situations is going to deliver suboptimally over the longer stretch. So it's time that the 49ers give Brock Purdy some help, and it's time that people grow up and start looking at the quarterback position reasonably. I get it. I get that you want to direct all of your anger at one spot, but I mean, just direct it at the 49er defense then, if that's what if you have to simplify things, do that. But the truth is, I think it's time to analytically look at football in a smarter way, and that is, look at this as a team sport that it is. It's not an individual sport. It is a collective sport. Brock Purdy carried so much of the weight that he needed to carry, and he's going to need some help. The 49ers are just fine at quarterback moving forward. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. He played a very promising game with, just showcasing a lot of physical potential yesterday. And if the 49ers can get that very same game with just an average defense and with average offensive line play, they win 9 times out of 10. And that's the bottom line in a team sport.